Okay, so the recording is on. And I welcome you, Kristina Grossman, professor from Bonn University to Ton Duc Thang University in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, in the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities for 30-minute methods, which is another one in our series that's now been going on for a few years. Kristina Grossman is she's visited us here in Ho Chi Minh City about a year and a bit ago, I think it was. And I visited her great institute in Bonn last year. She sits in the chair of anthropology in the Department of Southeast Asia Studies and the Institute of Orient and Asian Studies in Bonn. Actually, the institute that had as its first professor Schlegel, who was one of Marx's first university teachers, and I was there to look at that. Kristina, welcome. She's an author of many articles and books. I counted 7 at least. The books. I'll mention only some. Plural Ecologies in 2023 with a couple of colleagues from the institute, from the department. Human Environment Relations and Politics in Indonesia in 2021, and then some older ones on gender, Islam and activism, and violence against women in China and Southeast Asia. I think I've got that round the wrong way. Southeast Asia and China. Am I right?
Yeah. Southeast Asia is my focus.
Yeah, and a whole host of other articles and so on. But what I'm asking her to talk about today in 30 Minutes Methods is just how she goes about doing her research. And the title of her talk, which I'll hand over straight away, is Engaged Research in Indonesia, Potentials and Limits. Welcome, and the floor and the internet is yours.
Thank you very much, John, for this very warm introduction. I'm very happy to contribute here with my methodology in your 30 Minutes Methods seminar. Yeah, let me jump in. I'm focusing on engaged anthropology and action research today, which is part of my last research project. So I engaged in research. What is this? This is a trend. This is an approach which gained more importance in the last years because research should step out of the ivory tower, should engage with people, communities, and they should have something, so to say, from the research at universities. So engaged anthropology or action research has the aim to contribute to societal and political change. And the methods are participative, so you engage with the people you work with in different scales and in different forms. What did I do? I conducted scenario workshops. The problem in the areas where I worked are mining problems, land conflicts, and the lack of participation of communities in land transformation processes. I did scenario workshops with communities and other relevant actors on their future visions, and how to get there. So scenario workshops, usually they have 3 steps, which you can see in these blue boxes. So what are current problems regarding land rights? Then how should the situation look like in 20 years? And how do we get there? And what are relevant actors and hindrances? What are problems? So, I forgot. Here is Indonesia. You might be familiar, of course, with Indonesia. And my research area is here in the Indonesian part of Borneo. It's called Kalimantan. And I worked in central Kalimantan, where this red circle is. So now I focus on the workshops, the future scenario workshops I conducted. I conducted mainly three workshops, one at province level, one in Germany. So I invited people to Germany, and one again in central Kalimantan on the district level. So the one on the province level I conducted in 2018 with about 30 participants from universities, civil societies, organizations, local media, and the provincial government. Then I was able to invite, I think it was 5 to 10 people. You see the picture there, to Bonn. This was quite a good workshop because it was far away from the problems, so to say, in Kalimantan, and we could really discuss problems more openly. And then in 2020, I conducted a 2-day workshop with villagers in the region and also with representatives of the local government and the mining company. And this was a very successful workshop. So, opportunities. The workshop were spaces, possibilities for exchange and networking of the relevant actors during the workshop and beyond. And this might have not been possible without the workshops, because the question is, why do they need a researcher coming from Germany to discuss land rights? Yeah. So my position as an outsider coming from Germany, I'm interested in the problems, I'm inviting different actors, signaled a kind of dialogic character. Yeah, so they were quite interested in, oh, what is she doing there? Why is she coming so far to discuss with us? And I was not involved in the local patronage networks. Yeah, so it was, so to say, more easy for them to come and to participate at the workshops. As I mentioned, meeting outside the villages or even in Germany was very good and very productive, because people, mostly from the community side, they didn't feel they are constrained yet to talk about problems or about their future visions. So these 2 points were very good and were opportunities for villagers, for community members, and for my research. And here the last point, what I found out is that a major outcome, positive outcome, was networking. Yeah, networking means, for example, having the WhatsApp number of representatives of the mining company, in order if if problems occur, I have the number and can maybe call the person. Yeah, so networks are a really big asset and a really important dimension which was strengthened through the workshops. But there were also limits. At the workshop on province level, powerful stakeholders were not participating, for example, representatives of the government or of mining companies. So it was more visited by NGOs, organizations, and journalists and so on. So they, at the province level, they were not government representatives or from the company. They were not interested in discussing the issues I brought on the table. Then the workshop on the district level, the first day, it was very formal. So we had to follow all the formal procedures of inviting the district head, inviting the traditional leaders and so on, and doing all these formal ceremonies. And on the second day, we conducted small workshops, and this was very, very productive. And there also all relevant actors participated. So the limits is how to really bring relevant actors to these workshops and try to find a space where they participate and where they come. Further limits were that Indonesia is, especially in rural areas, is a quite hierarchical society. So I realized that it's quite important and it's quite a challenge to not reproduce existing power relations. Because you have to consider whom to invite and whom to not invite, maybe, because they would maybe then dominate the workshops. Yeah, but on the other side, you have to invite certain people because it's the code of conduct to invite the political elites, for example, and if you don't invite certain people, then other people won't also come. So they only come if certain representatives come. Yeah, but you want to strengthen, or I wanted to strengthen communities. Yeah, so this is really a challenge of balancing and really also knowing the power relations in communities. Then a second point, the co-constitution of knowledge. It is a research, of course. It's so I want to have research outcomes, and the challenge is in a way to transform or get research outcomes from this transdisciplinary or engaged research. Yeah, because I not only conducted the workshops, but of course I did also ethnographic research in the area almost since 10 years now. So these workshops, they contributed to my other research outcomes, so to say, but in a way, confirmed what I found out in ethnographic research. So, and this is a common problem, I would say, in participatory research, that in German we say Erkenntnisgewinn, yeah, so the gains really to then at the end write articles, write books. So the research outcomes, they were actually not really from the workshops, but from the ethnographic work, the broader ethnographic work. So now I come to a multi-layered reflexivity to reflect on the whole process of engaged research, and I follow a 3-level reflexivity. First, the level on positionality. Second, the level of interpersonal reflexivity. And third, the collective reflexivity. So the societal transformation, what was really then transformed. The positionality is that I reflect on my role as a researcher, that I reflect on also, where I come from, what I represent in my research. So what is very important is tight contact to key collaboration partners. As I said, the first time when I traveled to Kalimantan was in 2014. And since then, I developed cooperations with relevant stakeholders, communities, and so on there. So I could really refer to very good and solid cooperations in Kalimantan. And this is very important in order that you develop the workshops, the concepts together. Then also you have to reflect, or I had to reflect on my own dichotomies. Of course, I have certain pictures in mind, who has power, who has no power, who is involved, who is an elite, who is not an elite. So, but this is sometimes different than what I expect or what I read in Germany. Yeah, so I have to also, be open for new constellations, for new topics which came up during the workshops. Interpersonal reflexivity means what which expectations or which different roles were there prevalent in between me and the cooperation partner. So one problem or one challenge was that villagers expected a lot from me. Yeah, actually, they expected that I solve the problems and I meet with the president and I come from Germany and bring, I don't know, a lot of money and so on. Actually, when I first met them, they thought I'm from a mining company. Yeah, they thought I'm a representative of a mining company, and they actually asked me for support of their infrastructure. Yeah, and then I explained, no, I come from the university and I have no a big budget for supporting their infrastructure, roads and schools and so on. Yeah, but I want to work with them together. I want to discuss problems and so on. So that was a quite long process that we discussed, and that they were also, so to say, brave to discuss things openly to me. Yeah, because of course they usually have contact with people coming from the West Australia and so on in the context of mining companies. And collective reflexivity. So of course, as I said, networking was one of the major outcomes. What community members mentioned, that this was a good gain, yeah, to meet people, representatives from the government and from the companies. But actually, I thought personally that we could make, so to say, more solid, more concrete outcomes, yeah, regarding conflicting land access. But these were also different expectations. Yeah, so it's quite important to, from the beginning, to discuss with community members what are their aims, what do they expect. Yeah, this future scenario workshops. Yeah, what is their aim in 30 years and how to get there. And here also to reflect on my own expectations. Yeah, because it's not about my expectations; it's about their expectations. Yeah, and generally, I would say that doing engaged research could be more and more difficult in the future because, for example, for Indonesia, it's more and more difficult to get research permit as a Westerner is coming from Europe, because of the also geostrategic situation. Secondly, funding for qualitative research will be reduced in the future. We have some funding agencies in Germany, and yeah, they are more on funding other research, technology-based research, and not so much qualitative research. So there's a very high competition in getting funds. And of course, because my focus was on environmental change, rising authoritarianism, not only in countries of Southeast Asia, but also, of course, yeah, in the global north, and for example, climate change denial, yeah, is of course a challenge when you work on environmental issues and environmental transformation. So these are just broader issues, yeah, and frameworks which might not support engaged anthropology in the future. So here are some literature hints specifically on the topic I presented now. And yeah, it was not 30 minutes. I think it was short, but I'm very open to question. I think we can discuss, and I can just add, yeah, in the discussion.
Okay, great. We can. Yeah, that works really well, because that gives me more chance to get all of my questions in this time. I don't always.
Yeah. Shall I stop the presentation, or is it?
Yeah, why not? We can see what Zoom does to that. Okay, people can put their cameras on if they want.
Yeah, if they want, and if they want to ask something.
if they would. We've got 6 online and a bit more than that here. So I guess I will ask a question. I want to ask several, but I'll ask just one. I was really interested in the idea of engagement, who gets engaged and what that means. So and then the thing about distance, because you're engaging with somewhere that's quite far away. And what struck me as being really interesting, and I wanted to hear more about, was how it was that being far from the problems, when people came from Kalimantan to Germany, they were able to, as you said, discuss more because they were far away from the problem. And I was thinking about that because, anthropologists also like to sometimes leave their field sites so they can then concentrate on writing. And I thought there's a similarity, but that has reduced in recent years because of social media, because no one can really get very far away anymore. So I wonder if you could think about that a little bit or comment on that. Have you noticed over time less opportunity? And that's really relevant for us in Vietnam, of course, because a lot of the commentary about Vietnam is bifurcated by talk here and talk over there among the Viet Kieu and the diaspora and the US films and so on. But mainly I wanted to hear about what happened when they were far from home in Germany, and why you think they were able to open up, or did they open up? Did they keep some things, public relations? Everyone's pretty aware of that. What was the scenario?
So distance, I think, when I visited the villages, and sat together with, let's say, the village head and the family in his house, and we discussed problems, then the thing was not that the whole village or the neighbors also could hear what we say. So it was not so much about that they did not say any sensitive things or problems also, because other people could really hear what he said. But it was more like a personal constraint also, to be in the village and feel the maybe hierarchy, and the person was in the middle of this, this setting, and this was more a psychological maybe effect, that then when we met, for example, in the district capital or the provincial capital, he was really more open and more willing to discuss problems, and even more than when the group visited Germany. So I think it's not so much about really that he speaks openly about secrets and the other could listen also what he revealed also, but it was more like this feeling, okay, I'm away from this quite hierarchical village setting, and are more open to discuss sensitive issues. And of course, social media, WhatsApp, and so on is very helpful in reducing this kind of distance for me, because I traveled to Kalimantan maybe twice a year maximum. And of course, a lot of things happen in between, but you can keep in touch, you can really update, you're in a way, you're updated of the current situation. So of course, this makes engagement more possible. And so in this case, it's a support. Yeah, it's helpful. And I mean this the situation where anthropologists stay over a year in a very remote area and then, so to say, come back home to their home university and write a year in their, maybe let's say ivory tower or so, yeah. I mean, this is a little bit another approach of engagement and engaged anthropology, I would say, yeah. So this is more about coming back, coming back again and again. And this was also a very important thing that I came back. Yeah, I came there 2014, I came 2015, and so on. I came every year. So people really realized that it's not just a one-day talk or so. Yeah, but I come back. I remember what we discussed during the last meetings. We did a workshop. Then I invited them. So it was really a long process of engagement and also offerings. Yeah, I offered them, for example, to come to Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I know that that's a practice in other parts of your department as well, with the meetings that were going on weekly with the Indonesian activists around Palestine as well. Anyway, yeah. I could go on, but I'm sure there are other people with questions. Anyone?
Yeah, can I ask?
You can, Sir Ernest, yeah. Or people can put up.
Hi, Kristina. Thank you for a really interesting talk. I had just a quick question. I would like to know what was about the outcomes of the research, and what was the impact of your research on the local communities using this method. Could you talk more about that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So these workshops were part of a broader research project called Futuren, so Future Visions of Environmental Transformation. And I focused mainly on coal mining because coal mining is still supported and still enhanced in Indonesia, because it's like the motor of development and based on natural resource extraction. So there's still some coal, and they want to use and dig out the coal and use the coal for export and electricity, for example, and in this area where I have been before, then they developed a mega mining project. So that was the beginning, in a way, of my engagement. Yeah, I realized, okay, this will be very transformative in the future for communities, because there were already coal mines, but the plan was really to extend these areas in large scale. So that was the beginning. We realized, okay, land conflicts, of course, will be very important. Of course, they had land conflicts before, but not in this large scale. So this was the background of my research. And then the main thing was actually the question to implement indigenous land management schemes in order to protect certain areas of land for villagers, that villagers have still the access to this land. Yeah, that was actually the main goal. So to think about schemes or programs for certain plots of land or forest to secure the access and control for villagers to these plots of land. That was the main question then, or one main question. Of course, other questions, in these future visions, job opportunities, education, infrastructure programs, this corporate social responsibility schemes, and so on. So these were all also topics, which we discussed. But the main thing concerning land rights was this indigenous land management scheme, which was propagated by a specific indigenous Dayak, the people called Dayak there, by a specific indigenous group, which is based in the capital, provincial capital, and they designed a specific land management scheme. But that was not really suitable for the area where I did my research, because they had a different approach to land and forest. They have more relational, and this is actually explained in my book of this human environmental relationships, because they have a quite different way of dealing with land, with forest, and so on, than the more agricultural based Daya group close to the provincial capital. So a lot of discussion was actually about which scheme was suitable for villagers to secure their access to land. Is it more, and in Indonesia, as in other parts of the world, this Tanya Morelli calls it tribal slot. Yeah, so the rise of indigeneity and the rights connected to being indigenous, yeah, for indigenous people. This is a very important thing also in Indonesia. So people or the state, the central government, they they enhance the rights for indigenous people, but of course it's a very complicated process. And you have different schemes of how to secure land rights for indigenous groups. Yeah, you have, for example, this indigenous village, or you have an indigenous land scheme, or you have an, one main point was to discuss which scheme would be suitable for the people in the community, and for that we invited also people from Jakarta, yeah, from the national capital, because they are closer to the government, and they know how to implement these different schemes also, yeah. So this was one major discussion with community members to find out which scheme would be suitable, first of all, and secondly, then also discuss with the representative of the mining companies if that would be suitable with their plans for their mining, yeah, for mining programs. So this was one major topic. Another major topic was this corporate social responsibility issue. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the whole process, but companies are actually it's obligatory for them to engage with the community in the frame of corporate social responsibility programs to enhance infrastructure, building roads, schools, paying the teachers. Yeah, they are paid by the company and not by the states in some cases. Yeah, so it's a little bit absurd. So I would say the government is dysfunctional. Yeah, it's not providing the basic supply things, yeah, roads and so on, infrastructure. But actually, companies provide that. Yeah, so people also see companies as an enhancing their infrastructure, yeah, and not really the government. So this was another major topic, yeah. What villagers wanted to enhance? So was it a road? Was it a school? Was it health service and so on? And then to also discuss with the company what they are, so to say, willing to provide.
Okay, great. Is there anyone in the room want to ask a question? Yeah, okay, we've got one here. I'm just going to turn the microphone on. You have to speak with the speaker of the computer. So, yeah, introduce yourself.
Hi. Hello, my name is Nashir, and I have a quick question for you. So you mentioned that when you do the engaged research, you will do the workshop and you can meet the villagers outside the villages. But in the rising challenges, you say that you need to find funds for the qualitative research as well. So my question is, why did you choose qualitative research? Thank you.
Yeah. qualitative research or engaged anthropology or engagement is qualitative, yeah, because you meet with people, you talk with them. It's kind of a participatory method, yeah. So it's qualitative, and for my purposes, I mean the method or the methodology you choose is dependent on the aim of the research, yeah. It's dependent on what you want to find out. So for me, it was important to find out which visions do they have, yeah? What do they expect? How do they see their village in 20 years' time? You know, what's their future vision? And then how to get there. So who should be involved and who should do what, so to say, yeah? And for that, we, you know, sat on a table and we had paper on the table, and then they draw like how do they want to develop their village, yeah. And that is a qualitative approach, yeah, because you talk to people and you draw some pictures and you focus on relevant actors, you name relevant actors and problems in this process, yeah. So you have different methods in order to, you know, achieve that that scenario idea, yeah, or the participation. And I like qualitative research because it's closer to my aim, yeah, to my research aim. With quantitative research, I think it's not really possible to have this in-depth, yeah, view of people, opinion of people. Yeah, but more and more research, like in economy or I don't know, yeah, agricultural studies, geography, it's more quantitative, yeah. So this is.
Thank you for your
Okay.
answer.
Yes.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question, please?
You can, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nhung, and I hear that you mentioned about the challenge during your research is the policy in the of the local government is quite affect on the is the risk for your results. And I want you to talk about the effect of the policy is it whether it's effect on the engagement of the people in Indonesia and whether it's create a boundary for the ethic for all the ethic in Indonesia and the gender and the social class in the Indonesia.
Yeah. So the local politics, yeah, first. In the 2000s years, there was a huge decentralization process, yeah, after the fall of the authoritarian president Suharto. So in this decentralization process, local governments, actually, they gained a lot of power. Provincial governments, but also the district governments, yeah, they gained power in, for example, the area of land rights, because they had to acknowledge or had to support specific changes in land rights. Yeah, for example, if you want to open a mining field, then you have to change the land right from, let's say, it's a forest area, now it's an industrial area. And for that, you need the support of the local government, yeah, because they gained more power after or in the process of decentralization. that was quite a problem because corruption really went up. And now several years ago, they returned, they revoked some of the decentralization laws. But nevertheless, local governments are quite important in this process, of, for example, changing the status of land rights, or the position of the land. And so they know that they are quite important, and they know that they are quite influential. So it was very important in this workshop on district level to include them. On the other side, they are in favor, or they want to support actually villages, because maybe it's their cousin, maybe it's the daughter of the uncle or so, living in these villages. So they are part of this patronage network, I would say, So also, if you want to, work with communities, it's quite important to include local politicians, because they are involved in this negotiation. For example, also with the mining companies. Usually, the mining companies, they approach first of all the district heads and then the village heads. But it turned out that they have their quite own agenda, because it was also election time in the second workshop at district level. In the election time, they wanted to promote their agenda and their way of indigenous land rights. They had a specific scheme which they wanted to promote. And that was a little bit, let's say, not contradict, but it was not an open discussion which scheme, the land rights scheme, was suitable for the village, but which scheme did the district government promote for their election campaign, so to say. So, but for that, you need to know the background of the whole story, so to say, and you need to have also people from maybe civil society organizations or so, from Jakarta, who can really figure out the differences of the different schemes and explain programs, because it's sometimes really complicated and it's sometimes really intransparent. Because if you ask certain people, they have their, in the, for example, in the district government, they have their own agenda, and they would not like neutrally or openly, discuss these different schemes or so. So for that, it was good that we had experts also here from outside, from Jakarta, from Java, and they had no political interest, in advancing a certain scheme, or not so high political interest than the local government. So I think that was quite good for the villages also, to understand the differences of the schemes and so on, because they can decide if they reject a certain scheme, then they are not forced to implement a certain scheme. That's also quite good. So I would say one impact was information. Was more in-depth information explanation of the difference of the choices they could have. And then they had the network. They had the contact to the persons in Jakarta, and they could ask, so if we want to implement this scheme, what shall we do? What are the next steps? So this is, this is maybe a basic thing, but they did not have that. They did not have a WhatsApp number of someone in Jakarta who could really support them in this process of implementing a certain land management scheme. So information, networks, access to knowledge, yeah. And yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to come to an end soon, but I've got one pressing question. It's not really methodology, right? But getting money is a part of doing research, right? Getting funding.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that a little bit along the way, and that's interesting. And Nashir had raised it as well. Is it cheaper to do qualitative or quantitative? But one thing that popped up that I was reminded of as you were saying that about the money was that the villagers, the local community in Kalimantan, thought that you were from the mining company at first.
Yeah.
Right? And so their expectations must be, okay, these people are here to extract our resources. We want to get a benefit from it. Now, I think I've spoken to you before about this a long time ago, 30 or 40 years ago, 30 years ago now. There was a quite famous anthropologist, passed away a couple of years ago, who I had a run-in with, a conflict with, because he was employed by Kaltim Prima mining company in Kalimantan, a sub-branch of CRA, the largest mining company in the world. Anthropologists working for mining companies was a real big problem then. And I wanted to ask about whether or not in this current funding climate, there are anthropologists that are taking the poison penny from the mining companies, or is coal mining of a different order to the public relations of an Australian mining company in Kalimantan?
So I would say for me personally, it's not really a problem or an issue because I have a quite good salary of a German university. So as a professor, of course, I'm very privileged. Yeah, I have a very, very privileged position here. Of course, conducting a workshop, I won't pay that from my own pocket money, so to say, yeah, because so I would need funding for further workshops in the future. But for my own, so to say, salary or so, I'm not dependent on extra money from companies. But I would say for colleagues in Indonesia, this is a really major issue. And I know that colleagues, it's not really being employed by mining companies. I don't know any. I know one colleague who was employed and then changed to science, so to say, and is now employed at a university, but it's not parallel. Yeah. So he was employed also at an Australian mining company. And then he said, no, that's not my thing of work I want to do. I changed to anthropology, yeah, and work at the university. That is one example, but so it's not so much the issue of being really employed at a mining company, but doing research for the mining companies in order to provide basic information for this social corporate social responsibility schemes. Yeah, for these schemes they need like basic information about the ethnicity, the social structure, and so on. And these things, these reports are made by anthropologists, by scientists who get quite good money for these reports, but also in a way support these very intransparent and very unjust social responsibility schemes. Yeah, so this is a major problem. And some professors they or some researchers they reject these offers. Yeah, if mining companies approach them, they say no. I rather do something else to increase my salary, because the salary is quite low, yeah, in Indonesia for professors. But I do not want to get funding from or money from mining companies. But of course, some they do it, and and they are then involved in implementing or enhancing mining, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a common problem.
Yes, it's a common problem.
And yeah, with the funding squeeze and climate deniers getting into power in countries that have the purse strings, those privileges also becoming less. All right, look, thank you, Kristina, very much for your talk and letting us get an insight into your research and methods, and so interesting. And I'm going to talk to people more about the way in which things happen in Bonn. I think there's a lot more that we could say about this. And thank you for the people who ask questions. And I know there is probably some more still. People can get in touch. Normally, we would now take a group photo and have you up the front and present, but you have the benefit of being far from the problems, and you don't have to. But thank you very much, and
yeah, thanks for inviting me.
We'll see you again soon. All right,
Yes.
and everyone who attended online and here in the room, thank you very much. Okay, see you.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.